The sergeant's hand was halfway to the old man's collar when 3 black vehicles screamed onto the range. Doors flew open. A 2-star general stepped out, and what happened next made every recruit's blood run cold. Because the frail 84-year-old they'd been mocking for the past 20 minutes wasn't confused. He wasn't lost. He was the most dangerous man who ever wore that uniform, and they'd just made the worst mistake of their young lives. Hit subscribe right now. Stay until the end. Comment your city so I know how far this story travels. Because what you're about to hear will change how you see every veteran you ever meet. Glenn Whitman's hands shook on the steering wheel. He didn't remember leaving his house. Didn't remember pulling the old jacket from the closet. But November 7th always did this to him. Pulled him back 56 years like a fishhook in his chest. The gate guard was maybe 22. Looked at Glenn's veteran ID like it was written in a foreign language. Sir, visiting hours start at 0900. I'm not visiting. Sir, range 7. I need range 7. The kid's finger hovered over his radio. Something in Glenn's voice made him pause. Not anger, not confusion, just wait. The kind of tired that sleep never fixes. I'll call it in. Glenn waited. The gate lifted. He drove through at exactly 15 miles per hour. Range 7 sat on the west side. Basic rifle qualification range. Nothing special. Except Glenn wasn't seeing targets in concrete. He was seeing jungle. Red mud. 11 faces that stopped breathing one by one by one. He parked. Killed the engine. Sat there breathing fog onto the windshield. I'm here, he whispered to nobody. I came back. The voices never answered anymore. He climbed out, zipped the jacket, felt the patch under his fingers, faded green, an eagle clutching lightning letters, almost invisible, MACV-SOG. That's when he heard them. Young voices, loud, confident in that way that only comes before you've buried anyone. A platoon forming up near the firing line. 30 recruits, fresh uniforms, thinking they'd figured out what hard meant. Their instructor stood front and center. Staff Sergeant Evans, mid-30s, chest full of ribbons, voice like a hammer. This morning's qualifier separates the warriors from the washouts. You fail, you repeat everything. Clear. Yes, Sergeant. Glenn stood at the edge, not hiding, just existing in the space between them and the rest of the world. A kid with a patchy mustache noticed first. Sarge, there's a grandpa on the range. Evans turned, confusion to irritation in half a second. Sir, this is restricted during active training. Clear the range. Glenn didn't move. His eyes were somewhere past the targets. Sir, I'm not asking. Evans stepped closer. Leave. Now. Glenn blinked, came back. I know where I am. Snickers rippled through the formation. Evans's jaw tightened. This isn't a public park, old-timer. You're interfering with military training. I know where I am. Quieter this time. More laughter. A recruit elbowed another. Dude's lost. Probably wandered off from the nursing home. Maybe he thinks it's bingo night. Evans held up a hand, but his eyes stayed hard. He moved closer, using his size, his youth, his authority like a wall. Look, Pops, turn around and... He touched Glenn's arm. Light pressure, just guiding him away. But the moment contact happened, something changed in Glenn's face. Not anger, something hollow. Evans wasn't touching a jacket anymore. He was gripping rotted fabric in jungle, dragging a body too broken to carry bullets, snapping past smoke and copper and screaming. Evans yanked back like he'd touched fire. Glenn's eyes focused. Really focused. Don't. Glenn's voice came out soft. Don't touch me when I'm there. When you're where... Glenn turned back toward the sunrise. His shoulders settled like he was about to take a shot he'd waited 56 years to make. Evans pulled his radio. Gate, how the hell did you let a civilian onto my range? Static. Sergeant, he had clearance. Veteran ID checked. I don't care if he's Audie Murphy's ghost. He said he needed to stand at range 7. Evans clicked off, looked at the patch on Glenn's sleeve. Faded, almost invisible. What unit? Glenn's lips moved. No sound at first, then barely audible. You wouldn't know it. Try me. It doesn't exist. Everything exists somewhere. Not where I was. The recruits went quiet. Something about the old man's stillness killed the jokes in their throats. Evans keyed his radio again. Command. I need guidance. Elderly veteran on the range claiming he was in a unit that doesn't exist. New voice, sharper. Officer grade. Say again. Some kind of special operations patch, real old. Can't read it. Can you see any designation? Evans squinted at the patch. Eagle, lightning bolts, letters mostly gone except M-A-S-O. Looks like MACV. Something with S-O. 3 seconds of silence. When the voice returned, it was different, careful. Sergeant Evans, do not touch that man. Do not move him. Keep recruits back. Someone's coming immediately. Sir, I don't... Not supposed to understand. Just do it. Clear. Clear, sir. Evans lowered the radio slowly. Looked at Glenn with new eyes. Not respect yet, but doubt. The first crack. But the recruits didn't hear the call. They just saw their sergeant backing down from an old man. Seriously, Sarge. He's like 100. Just walk him off. Yeah, let Grandpa do push-ups with us. Evans spun. Shut your mouths. Too late. The laughter was out. Glenn heard it. All of it. His mind left. Went back to the firebase. To Mac's hand going slack. To Mac trying to say his daughter's name through the blood and morphine but couldn't remember it. Tell them I was brave, Mac had whispered. You're the bravest man I ever knew. Mac smiled. Stopped breathing. That was 56 years ago this morning. Same hour. Same light. Glenn's knees buckled. Just slightly. Just enough he had to lock them. Evans saw it. Sir, are you... I'm fine. Voice cracking. I just need to stand here. Few minutes, that's all. Orders say keep you here until... I'm not going anywhere. In the observation tower, Lieutenant Miller watched through binoculars. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Knew what trauma looked like. Knew when someone's eyes went somewhere else. He grabbed the phone. Sir, Range 7. We've got a situation. We're aware. Assets en route. Sir, this man looks like he's having an episode. Might need medical. Do not interfere. Is he standing? Yes, sir. Let him stand. Sergeant Major's 3 minutes out. Miller hung up. Looked through the binoculars again. The old man was barely upright, and the recruits were circling. Down on the range, a tall kid named Morrison stepped forward. Hey, old-timer, you know what happens to trespassers, Leavenworth? My dad's a lawyer. Morrison shut it, Evans snapped, but his authority was tissue paper now. Morrison ignored him. If he's got dementia, we should call someone. Get him back to the home before... Glenn's head turned. His eyes found Morrison. Morrison stopped talking because what he saw wasn't confusion or weakness. It was the look of someone who'd killed men with bare hands and never slept well again. Son, Glenn's voice came out quiet. You don't know a goddamn thing about me. I know you're old and confused. You know what your rifle sounds like on a range with ear protection and hot coffee waiting. You know clean sheets and FaceTime with mama. You don't know what blood tastes like at 3 in the morning when you're biting through your tongue to keep from screaming. You don't know what it's like burying your friends with an entrenching tool while the enemy's 20 meters out. So don't you ever presume to know what I am. Morrison went white, stepped back. The platoon went silent. Evans felt it then. The shift. The way air gets heavy before lightning. He'd felt it once in Iraq, right before his convoy got hit. Something big was coming. He turned toward the access road. 3 black SUVs, coming fast, throwing dust. Lights flashing, no sirens. They skidded to a stop. Doors opening before the vehicles fully stopped. First man out, Command Sergeant Major Thompson, 40 years in. Face like carved granite. Second man made Evans's stomach drop. Major General Wallace, 2 stars gleaming, ribbons that told stories of Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, and he was walking toward the old man like approaching a live bomb. Wallace stopped 10 feet away, stared at Glenn, at the patch. Then Major General Wallace came to attention and saluted. Glenn didn't salute back, just stared like seeing a ghost. "You're not supposed to be here, sir." Not a command, a plea. "I know." Glenn's voice broke. "But it's November 7th. Wallace's jaw worked, held the salute. "They told us you stopped coming." "I tried. 10 years I tried." Glenn's voice cracked. "But they're still here, still waiting. Sir, there's no one here." "You're wrong, General. They never left." The recruits froze. Evans froze. The wind stopped. Wallace lowered his hand, turned to face the platoon. "Attention." Every recruit snapped to position. Wallace walked forward. Each step a punctuation mark. "You think you know what a soldier is? 3 months of basic and some push-ups taught you about sacrifice." He pointed at Glenn without looking. "That man is Sergeant Glenn Whitman, codename Ghost. He served in a unit so classified our government denied they existed for 30 years. MACV-SOG, Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group, the most dangerous special operations unit in American history." Morrison's face went the color of old paper. Wallace kept going. No mercy. November 1969. Sergeant Whitman's 12-man recon team inserted into Laos, a country we weren't officially in, to gather intelligence. Compromised day 2. Surrounded by 200-plus NVA. Cut off. No extraction. They fought for 73 hours. He paused. Let it sink in. 73 hours. 3 days without sleep. Without reinforcement. Calling airstrikes on their own position because the enemy was that close. Artillery so near they got hit by their own shrapnel. One by one his brothers died. Mack, Rivera, Johnson, Martinez, Kowalski, Chen, all of them. A recruit made a sound, not quite a sob. Until just Sergeant Whitman, wounded 4 places out of ammunition. Fighting with a broken knife and pure hatred. Chen was crying now. Then another recruit. Then Morrison put his face in his hands. When rescue birds finally reached him, Wallace's voice dropped. He was lying across the bodies, still alive, still fighting, keeping the enemy from desecrating his brothers. They had to sedate him to get him on the helicopter because he wouldn't leave them. Glenn was shaking, trembling like a leaf, but standing. He received the Medal of Honor in a closed ceremony. No press, no public record, because the mission never officially happened. For 56 years, he's carried those ghosts alone. Every November 7th, he comes to whatever range has the number 7. Stands formation with brothers who never came home. Wallace turned back to the platoon, found Evans. So when this sergeant mocked him, when you boys laughed, you weren't insulting an old man. You were pissing on 12 American heroes' graves. Evans looked like he'd been shot. "Sir, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. Because you didn't ask. Didn't look past what you thought you saw. Saw weak assumed worthless. Saw old assumed irrelevant. That's not just disrespectful, Sergeant. That's dangerous. A leader who judges without knowing gets his people killed." "Yes, sir." Wallace turned to the recruits. "Which of you laughed?" 6 hands went up slowly. Morrison's shaking. "You 6 report to my office 0900. We're discussing honor and shame." He turned back to Glenn, voice gentled. "Sir, need medical." Glenn shook his head. "Just need to stand here." "How long?" "Till sunrise ends. That's when Mac died. When the sun came up." Wallace checked his watch. 9 minutes. "Thank you, General." Wallace stepped back, keyed radio. "All units range 7 closed 15 minutes. Code Phoenix. No traffic." "Code Phoenix, sir," Thompson asked quietly. "For a fallen angel still standing." The next 9 minutes were the longest of Evans's life. He watched the old man stare at nothing. Watched him mouth words nobody could hear. Watched tears run down into his collar. Chen started crying. Then another. Then Morrison, cocky kid who'd run his mouth, sobbed like a child. They finally understood. That old man wasn't weak. He was holding together something that should have shattered decades ago. At 06:19 hours exactly. Glenn straightened, wiped his eyes, turned to Wallace. Thank you, sir. Don't call me that. I'm not fit to carry your canteen. Glenn smiled, thin, sad, but real. You're a good man, General. The kind we needed more of. Wallace swallowed hard. Can I ask something? Go ahead. Why come here? After all these years, why keep hurting yourself? Glenn looked at the recruits, at Evans, at all of them. Because somebody has to remember. If I stop coming, they're really gone. I promised every single one I'd make sure people knew they were brave, that they mattered, weren't just names on a wall. He touched the patch. This is all I have, this and the mornings. So I come and I stand, and for a few minutes we're whole again. Then the sun finishes, and I go home and try to make it another year. Morrison stepped forward, voice shaking. Sir, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know, son. You didn't know. Glenn's voice was kind now. None of you did. He looked at Wallace. Don't be too hard on them. They're young, learning. We were all young once. Sir, they disrespected what they didn't understand. There's a difference. He turned to Evans. Sergeant, you grabbed my arm thinking you were protecting your soldiers from a confused old man. That's not cruelty. That's ignorance. And ignorance can be fixed. Evans' voice strangled. Sir, I don't deserve. What you deserve isn't up to me. What matters is what you do at this moment. Let it break you or teach you. Your choice. Thompson stepped forward. Sergeant Whitman, do you remember me? Glenn looked. Really looked. Eyes widened. Little Tommy Thompson, from the NCO course in '94. Thompson smiled. Yes, sir. You guest lectured. Leadership under fire. Changed my career. You were a good kid. Listened more than you talked. Learned that from you, sir. Glenn nodded. You did well, Tommy. Real well. He looked at the recruits one more time. Listen to me. All of you. This morning isn't about me. It's about you. The kind of soldiers, the kind of people you're becoming. He took a breath. You're going to meet veterans. Old ones, young ones, broken ones. Some proud, some angry, some so damaged they barely function. And it'll be easy, so damn easy, to dismiss them. See the wheelchair or the shakes or the stare and think they're weak, crazy, less than you. His voice hardened. Don't ever make that mistake again. Because everyone carried something you haven't, saw things you won't. The fact they're still here, still breathing, still trying, that's not weakness, that's the strongest thing in the world. Chen raised her hand. Sir, how do you keep going after everything? Glenn was quiet. I don't know, honey. Some days I don't think I am. Just still moving, still here. Because if I stop, if I give up Mac and Rivera and the others, they died for nothing. Can't let that be true. Doesn't it hurt coming here? Every single time, like a knife in the chest. But pain means they were real. Means what we did mattered. I'll take that pain every day for the rest of my life if it means they're remembered. Wallace checked his watch. Sir, hate to interrupt, but need to clear the range. Glenn nodded, started to turn, stopped. General, one more thing. That sergeant, don't ruin him. He's got fire. That's valuable. Just needs direction. Sir, he grabbed you. I've done worse to people who didn't deserve it. We all have. Glenn looked at Evans. You'll be okay, son. Remember this feeling. Let it make you better, not bitter. Evans couldn't speak, just nodded, face wet. Glenn walked to his car. Every step looked painful. Thompson moved to help, but Wallace held up a hand. Let him walk alone. He's earned that. They watched Glenn reach his Buick, watched him sit 5 minutes head bowed before starting the engine. As he drove away, Morrison turned to Wallace. Sir, what happens now? Wallace looked at the kid, saw the shame, the understanding, the desperate need to make it right. Now you learn private. Learn to look deeper. Ask more. Understand everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about. Treat them like they might be the most dangerous, most heroic, most broken person you'll ever meet, because one day they will be. He turned to Evans. Sergeant, you're reassigned, effective immediately. Evans stood straighter. Yes, sir. Veterans Liaison Office. Transition programs, suicide prevention, benefit claims. You're learning their stories, every single one. Maybe you'll become the kind of leader who sees people instead of problems. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Wallace started walking, stopped, turned. That man saved my life once. Everyone froze. 1987, lieutenant in Panama. Got separated during night patrol. Ambushed. Round in the leg, bleeding out. Old special operations instructor nobody knew appeared out of the jungle like a ghost. Carried me 3 clicks. Wouldn't give his name. Just said, "Pass it on, Lieutenant. When you get the chance, pass it on." He looked where Glenn's car had disappeared. Took me 20 years to figure out who he was. By then he'd vanished. Wouldn't answer calls, wouldn't accept awards. Just wanted to be alone with his ghosts. Never got to thank him. Tell him he's why I lived long enough to have a family. Make general matter. Wallace's voice cracked. So when I heard his name this morning, I dropped everything. Because I owed him. We all owe him. Every person who wears this uniform owes men like Glenn Whitman. If you can't see that you don't deserve to be here. He climbed into his SUV. Engines started. Vehicles pulled away. Evans and his platoon stood in the morning light. Nobody moved. Then Chen spoke. "Sergeant, can we stand here just for a minute like he did?" Evans looked at her, at all of them. Kids who'd just learned something no classroom could teach. "Yeah, we can do that." They formed up without being told. Not for inspection, not for training, just to stand where an old soldier had stood with ghosts only he could see. Morrison whispered, "I'm sorry, sir. Wherever you are, I'm so sorry." The words carried on wind. Maybe Glenn heard them. But somewhere in that Buick heading down the highway, tears running into his gray-beard hands shaking on the wheel, Glenn Whitman smiled, because they were learning. And then his phone rang. He almost didn't answer. Never answered calls on November 7th. But something made him look at the screen. Unknown number. His thumb hovered, pressed accept. Hello? Static. Then a voice, rough old familiar in a way that made Glenn's heart stop. "Ghost that you..." Glenn's hands went numb. The car swerved slightly before he corrected. "Who is this?" "It's Reaper, Carlos Martinez." Glenn's vision blurred. His voice came out broken. "Carlos died in 1969. I buried him myself." "You buried someone, Ghost." "But it wasn't me." The world tilted. "That's impossible. I saw you." "Meet me. Tonight. The place where it started. Come alone. And Ghost." "What?" "Bring your patch. You're gonna need it." The line went dead. Glenn pulled over. Sat there shaking so hard he thought his bones would break. Because Carlos Martinez had been his spotter. His best friend. The first man to die in that jungle. Glenn had held his body, felt him go cold. But that voice... He looked at the phone. At the number that was already gone from his call log like it had never existed. And for the first time in 56 years, Glenn Whitman wondered if he'd buried the right man. Glenn sat in that Buick for 20 minutes before his hands stopped shaking enough to drive. Carlos Martinez, dead 56 years. Voice on the phone like he'd just stepped out for coffee. Impossible. But Glenn had learned a long time ago that impossible was just another word for classified. He pulled back onto the highway. Didn't go home. Couldn't. Not with that voice echoing in his skull like a round ricocheting in a metal room. "Bring your patch. You're gonna need it." His phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. 2847 Riverside Industrial, Warehouse 12, midnight. Tell no one or people die. Glenn stared at the screen until it went black. Then he did something he hadn't done in 30 years. He opened the glove box and pulled out the Colt 1911 he'd carried in Vietnam. Still wrapped in oilcloth. Still loaded with the same 7 rounds from 1969. He checked the action, muscle memory taking over. 43,000 hours since he'd last held this weapon, and his hands knew exactly what to do. Someone honked behind him. He was stopped at a green light. Glenn drove. Back at Fort Mays, Evans sat in Wallace's office like a man waiting for execution. The general hadn't said a word for 5 minutes, just stood at the window, hands behind his back, watching the sun climb higher. Finally, Tell me what you learned today, Sergeant. Evans's throat was sandpaper. That I'm a fool, sir. Wrong answer. Sir, Wallace turned. His face wasn't angry, it was tired. You learned that assumptions kill Evans. You assumed that old man was nothing because he looked like nothing. You know what that's called in combat? Complacency, sir. It's called being dead. You'd be dead right now if that were a real enemy. Dead because you judged the threat by its appearance instead of its capability. Evans nodded, couldn't speak. I'm sending you to the VA hospital in Memphis. 3 months. You're going to sit with dying veterans and listen to their stories. Every single day. No phone, no laptop. Just you and them and whatever wisdom they've got left to share before they go. Yes, sir. And Evans, if you come back still thinking you know what a warrior looks like, I'll personally make sure you never wear this uniform again. Clear? Crystal, sir. Wallace dismissed him with a wave. But as Evans reached the door, the general spoke again. He asked me not to ruin you. Begged me, actually. After what you did, he still saw something worth saving. You think about that every morning you wake up in Memphis. You think about what kind of man shows mercy to someone who showed him none. Evans left with tears burning tracks down his face. In the parking lot, Morrison caught up with him. Sarge, wait. Evans kept walking. Not your sergeant anymore, Morrison. I don't care. I need to say something. Evans stopped, turned. Morrison looked like he'd aged 10 years in an hour. My grandfather was in Vietnam. Never talked about it. Died when I was 12. I remember asking him once if he ever killed anyone. He looked at me like I'd stabbed him, said, "Go, playboy," and walked away. I thought he was just being a dick. And now I think maybe I was asking him to relive the worst thing that ever happened to him, for my entertainment, like it was a fucking video game. Evans nodded slowly. We're all learning today, kid. What do we do with it, the learning? We carry it. Same way that old man carries his brothers. We carry this shame until it makes us better or it breaks us. Not much choice otherwise. Morrison wiped his face. I want to find him. Apologize properly. Wallace already tried. Ghost doesn't want to be found. Never has. Ghost, his call sign. 50 years ago, he was the thing enemy soldiers told scary stories about. Now he's just trying to die quietly. Best thing we can do is let him. But Evans didn't believe his own words. Because something about that phone call at the end, the way Glenn's face had changed when he answered, the way he'd looked at the screen like seeing a ghost for real, made Evans think the old man's quiet dying was about to get very loud. Glenn reached his house at noon. Small ranch style in a neighborhood where everyone minded their business. Perfect for a man who wanted to disappear. Inside, dust covered everything. He hadn't really lived here in years, just existed between November 7ths. He went to the bedroom closet, pushed aside the clothes that smelled like mothballs and loneliness, found the green duffel bag in the back corner. Hadn't opened it since 1987. Since Panama. Since he'd saved that lieutenant who became a general. He unzipped it slowly. The gear was still there. Night vision goggles, ancient but functional. Combat knife, 8 inches of carbon steel that had tasted blood in 3 countries. Tactical vest, Kevlar patches sewn over bullet holes that should have killed him twice. And at the bottom, wrapped in black silk, the thing he'd sworn he'd never touch again. His patch. Not the faded one on his jacket. The real one. Pristine. The one they'd given him the day MACV-SOG officially ceased to exist. Green and gold and perfect, like the unit had never been erased from history. He held it up to the light. 11 names were stitched on the back in thread, so fine you needed a magnifying glass to read them. 11 brothers who died so he could live. Except one of those names was Carlos Martinez, and Carlos Martinez had just called him on the phone. Glenn's hands started shaking again. He set the patch down, picked up his phone, dialed a number he hadn't called in 15 years. 3 rings. Then a voice, rough as broken gravel. Whitman. That really you? Hello, Dutch. Jesus Christ, thought you were dead. Not yet. What do you want? I'm retired. Been retired since Clinton was president. Dutch Hauer. CIA, the handler who'd run MACV-SOG from a desk in Saigon while Glenn and his team did the bleeding. I need information, Glenn said. Don't have any. I'm 79 years old and I spend my days fishing. Information business is for young men with death wishes. Carlos Martinez. Silence. Long and heavy. Glenn, don't. Is he alive? No. You sure? I was at his funeral, watched them bury an empty casket because there wasn't enough left to ship home. You know this. You were there. Someone just called me using his voice. Dutch's breathing changed, got sharp. Say that again. Voice on the phone. Said he was Carlos. Knew things only Carlos would know. Wants to meet tonight. It's a trap. Obviously. So you're not going. Glenn didn't answer. Glenn listened to me very carefully. Whatever this is, it's not about you. It's about what you represent. Ghost is a legend, a myth. Someone wants to use that. Don't let them. He said to bring my patch. Dutch went quiet again. When he spoke, his voice was different, scared. There are only 12 of those patches in existence. 11 went into the ground with your team. You have the 12th. If someone knows about them, knows what they mean, that's not some random trap. That's government level. That's people with access to files that don't officially exist. Why now? Why 56 years later? I don't know. But Glenn, I'm begging you, let this go. You've earned your peace. Don't throw it away chasing ghosts. What if he's real? He's not. But what if he is? Dutch exhaled slowly. Then you're about to learn something that'll make you wish you really were dead. Be careful, old friend. The line went dead. Glenn sat there holding the phone. Then he started loading the Colt. Back at Fort Mays, Lieutenant Miller couldn't shake what he'd seen through those binoculars. The way the old man had trembled but stayed standing. The way the general had saluted him like meeting God. He pulled up the base database, typed in Glenn Whitman. Access denied. He tried again with his officer credentials. Access denied. Classified beyond your clearance level. Miller stared at the screen. He'd seen Delta Force files, Ranger records, SEAL Team after action reports. Never once got an access denial. What the hell was this guy? He picked up his phone, called his father. Colonel Miller, retired, who'd spent 30 years in Army intelligence. Dad, I need you to tell me about MACV-SOG. His father's voice went cold. Where did you hear that name? I met someone today, someone who wore their patch. Impossible, they're all dead. He's not. What's his name, Glenn Whitman. Call sign Ghost. His father didn't speak for 10 seconds. Dad, son, listen very carefully. Forget you heard that name. Forget you saw that man. Forget this conversation. Do you understand? No, I don't. Those men don't exist. Never did. The things they did, the places they went, the people they killed, none of it is real on paper. And the men who know the truth are either dead or wish they were. If Glenn Whitman is alive, he's the last living link to operations that could topple governments, foreign and domestic. You do not want to be anywhere near that. He seemed like just a sad old man. His father laughed. No humor in it. Ghost once killed 14 enemy soldiers in 12 minutes using a Ka-bar knife and a rock. I've read the report. Classified so deep it's got its own classification. That sad old man is the most dangerous human being you will ever meet. And if someone's pulling him out of retirement, it means something very bad is about to happen. Miller hung up slowly, pulled up the duty roster, found Evans's number, dialed. Evans. It's Miller. Where does Whitman live? I don't know. Wallace wouldn't tell me. We need to find him. Why? Because I think he's about to do something stupid, and we owe him enough not to let him die alone. Evans was quiet. Then, I'll make some calls. Midnight came too fast. Glenn parked 3 blocks from the warehouse, loaded the Colt, checked the knife, put the patch in his jacket pocket where he could feel it against his heart. The industrial district was dead this time of night, just streetlights and shadows and the smell of rust. Warehouse 12 sat at the end of a row of identical buildings. No lights, no cars, no sign anyone had been here in years. Glenn approached from the south, old training kicking in, moving through shadows, watching sightlines, assuming every window held a rifle. The side door was unlocked. He pushed it open slowly. Colt up. flashlight in his left hand. Inside was darkness and the smell of oil and old concrete. "Hello?" His voice echoed. No answer. He moved deeper. Flashlight cutting through the black, revealing machinery covered in tarps, empty pallets, a forklift rusting in the corner. Then his light caught something that made him stop breathing. A chair in the middle of the empty space. And in the chair, a man. Glenn's flashlight beam climbed from boots to jeans to jacket to face. The face was wrong. Too young. Maybe 40. Latino features. But the eyes, Glenn knew those eyes. "Hello, Ghost." The voice was Carlos's. Exactly Carlos's. Same accent, same cadence, but the face was a stranger's. "Who are you?" Glenn's gun stayed level. "I'm Carlos Martinez, just not the one you buried." "That's impossible." "Is it you saw a body? Saw a face destroyed by shrapnel? But did you check fingerprints, DNA, or did you just assume?" Glenn's hand shook. "I held him while he died." "You held someone." "But Carlos Martinez didn't die in that jungle, Ghost. He walked out. Got picked up by agency handlers 3 clicks from your LZ. Been in deep cover ever since." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Tell me something only Carlos would know. Test me." Glenn's mind raced. "Mac's daughter. What was her name?" "Trick question. Mac never had kids. He lied about it to make himself seem more human. Said it helped him sleep at night pretending someone was waiting for him." Glenn's knees went weak. Only Carlos knew that. "Mac told me the truth 2 days before the mission," the man continued. "Said he was afraid of dying alone, afraid nobody would miss him. Asked me to make up a story if he didn't make it. Something about a daughter who loved him. Make his death mean something." Glenn lowered the gun slightly. Why fake your death?" "Because the mission wasn't what they told you. You thought you were gathering intel on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. But that was cover. You were bait, Ghost. All of you. Bait to draw out a North Vietnamese general who'd been leaking Soviet secrets to us. The agency needed him dead but couldn't do it officially. So they sent in 12 expendable operators and waited for the NVA to kill everyone." "No." "Yes. And when the shooting started, when your brother started dying, I got the signal. Time to extract. Time to disappear. They offered me a choice: die with the team or live with the truth. I chose wrong." Glenn's gun came back up. "You abandoned us. I saved the mission. That general got killed in the crossfire. Soviet pipeline dried up. Saved thousands of American lives. But yeah, I left you there. Left you all there to die. And I've lived with that for 56 years. Why tell me now?" The man who claimed to be Carlos stood slowly, hands up. "Because the people who ran that operation, they're still around. Still running operations, still sending good soldiers into bad situations. And they're about to do it again. Bigger this time, worse. And I can't stop them alone. What do you want from me? I want you to remember who you were. Ghost wasn't just a call sign, it was a promise. You were the thing that made evil men afraid to sleep. I need that man again." Glenn's finger tightened on the trigger. "That man died in the jungle." "No, he's been hiding, waiting, knowing someday he'd be needed again. I'm 84 years old, and I'm 59. Neither of us should be alive, but we are. And that means something." Before Glenn could respond, headlights cut through the warehouse windows. Multiple vehicles, coming fast. "They found us," Carlos said. "Get down." Glenn dropped as bullets punched through the metal walls. The sound was massive, deafening, machine gun fire, military grade. Carlos was moving, fast. Too fast for a man his age. He grabbed Glenn and yanked him behind a concrete pillar. "How many?" Glenn's training voice came back, calm, cold. "At least 6, probably more. Firepower. Enough to level this building." Glenn checked his Colt. 7 rounds. He laughed. Didn't sound sane. "What's funny?" Carlos asked. "I survived 73 hours in hell with better odds than this." Yeah, well, you had your team then. No, Glenn looked at him. I had brothers. I don't know what you are. The shooting stopped. A voice called out. Young, American, military. Glenn Whitman, Sergeant Carlos Martinez, you're surrounded. Come out with hands visible. Glenn and Carlos looked at each other. That's not police, Carlos said. No, that's Black Ops. Someone official wants us quiet. Any ideas? Glenn smiled. First real smile in 56 years. Yeah, let's remind them why they invented the name Ghost. He pulled the pristine patch from his pocket, pressed it to his chest. And for the first time since 1969, Glenn Whitman stopped being an old man waiting to die. He became the thing nightmares were made of. Carlos, if that's really you, if any part of my brother is still in there, then you remember the Laos protocols. Carlos's eyes widened. Ghost, those were designed for jungle terrain. Adapt and overcome, just like you taught me. I taught you. Yeah, right before you died. Or didn't. Whatever. Glenn moved to the forklift, grabbed a wrench from the floor, threw it hard against the far wall. The sound echoed. Immediately, bullets shredded that section of wall. Glenn counted muzzle flashes. 8 shooters, 4 northwest, 4 southeast. Probably 2 more in vehicles, 10 total. Against 2 old men with 1 pistol. I've had worse. Carlos laughed, started laughing like a maniac. God, I missed you, Ghost. I really did. Save it. We survived this. You've got a lot to answer for. Glenn moved again. Low and fast. Years falling away. Muscle memory taking over. He reached the south wall. Found what he was looking for. Old circuit breaker. He flipped every switch. The building went dark. Outside confusion. Voices calling out. Orders being shouted. Glenn whispered, "They've got night vision. We don't. But they're young and stupid. We're old and mean. Edge to us." That's terrible math. Math never saved anyone in a gunfight. Movement does. Sound does. Making them afraid does. He picked up a length of pipe, threw it hard toward the northwest corner. It clanged off metal, loud. Bullets followed instantly. They're jumpy, Glenn said. Good. Fear makes mistakes. He moved again, found another position, threw another object, more shooting. They're burning ammo, Carlos observed. Let them. When they're empty, we move. Move where? Out, obviously. There's 10 of them, and they've got the exits covered. Then we make a new exit. Glenn crawled to the north wall. Ancient and rusted metal. He kicked it. Once. Twice. Third time it buckled. Ghost that's gonna make noise. Glenn kicked again. The wall gave way with a shriek of tearing metal. Every gun outside opened up on that position, but Glenn was already moving. South. Fast. Carlos following. They reached the southeast corner as the shooters converged on the north breach. Glenn put 3 rounds through the south wall, creating their own exit. Go, he hissed. Carlos dove through. Glenn followed. They hit the gravel outside and rolled, came up running. Behind them, voices screaming. Confusion. Friendly fire. Glenn and Carlos made it to the fence, climbed, dropped on the other side, kept running. 2 blocks away, Glenn finally stopped, bent over, gasping. Too old for this, he wheezed. Carlos was breathing hard too. We're alive. That counts. For now, they'll keep coming. I know a place. Safe house. 2 hours north. Can you drive? Glenn straightened, looked at this man who wore his dead friend's voice. Can I trust you? Honestly, I don't know. But right now, I'm the only chance you've got of understanding what's happening. Glenn thought about it. About Mac. About the phone call. About 56 years of wondering if any of it had meant something. Lead the way. They walked to Glenn's Buick, climbed in. As Glenn started the engine, Carlos spoke quietly. For what it's worth, Ghost, I am sorry. For leaving you there. For letting you think I was dead. For stealing 56 years you could have spent knowing the truth. Glenn pulled onto the street. Sorry doesn't bring back Mac, or Rivera, or any of them. I know, but it's a start. They drove into the night. Two old soldiers running from shadows that had been chasing them for over half a century. Behind them at the warehouse, a man in a black tactical vest pulled out his phone. Sir, they escaped. The voice on the other end was cold, emotionless. Expected. Phase 2 is now active. Alert the senator. Tell him Ghost is in play. And if we lose them, you won't. Ghost doesn't run. He hunts, and we're about to give him something worth hunting. The man hung up, looked at his team. Pack it up, we're going to Memphis. There's a sergeant there who's about to have a very bad day. At Fort Mays, Evans woke to his phone ringing. 0200 hours. Evans. Sergeant, it's Miller. I found Whitman's address. Empty. Looks like he left in a hurry. Why do you care? Because my father just called me. Said there's chatter on old CIA channels. Something about a SOG operator going active. They're mobilizing assets. Evans sat up. To do what? Find him. Stop him. Kill him, if necessary. Why? Because apparently Ghost knows things that very powerful people want to stay buried, and they're willing to burn everything to keep him quiet. Evans was already pulling on his boots. Where are you? Base. Armory. I'm coming. And Miller? Yeah. Bring everything. We're going to war. The safe house was a hunting cabin 2 hours north in the Ozarks. No electricity, no running water, just 4 walls and a roof that leaked when it rained. Glenn killed the engine, sat there staring at the darkness. This is your safe house. Carlos climbed out. Been here since '73. Nobody knows about it, not even the agency. You sure? If they knew, we'd already be dead. They went inside. Carlos lit an oil lamp. Yellow light filled the single room. There was a cot, a table, 3 chairs, and enough guns mounted on the walls to start a small war. Glenn whistled low. You've been busy. 56 years is a long time to prepare for a fight you know is coming. What fight? Carlos sat heavily. Suddenly looked every one of his 59 years. The same fight we've been fighting since Vietnam. The same fight Mac died for. The same fight that never actually ended. Glenn remained standing, gun still in his hand. Start talking, and if I don't like what I hear, I'm walking out that door. You won't make it 3 steps. They've got satellites tracking us, drones, the works. Then I'll die trying. Been ready for that since 1969. Carlos nodded. Fair enough. Here's the truth. MACV-SOG wasn't just about reconnaissance. It was about testing. Testing how far soldiers would go, how much they'd sacrifice, how completely they'd follow orders, even when those orders were suicide. We knew it was dangerous. You knew it was dangerous. You didn't know it was theater. Every mission, every insertion, every firefight, all of it carefully orchestrated to gather data on human behavior under extreme stress. You weren't gathering intelligence, Ghost. You were the intelligence. You and Mac and Rivera and all the others. Lab rats in a jungle laboratory. Glenn's hand tightened on the gun. You're lying. Am I? Think about it. 12-man teams. Always 12. Never more. Never less. Missions that had 90% casualty rates but kept getting approved. Extraction protocols that somehow always failed at the critical moment. It wasn't bad luck, Ghost. It was by design. Why? Because they were building something. A program. A way to create soldiers who could operate beyond normal human limits. Who could keep fighting after everyone else was dead. Who could become weapons instead of just using them. Glenn's voice went quiet. Dangerous. Who's they? Project Artemis. Black budget program that started in 1965. Still running today. Different name now. Different faces. Same mission. Create the perfect soldier by breaking normal ones and seeing who survives. That's insane. That's government, Ghost. And you're proof it worked. You survived when you shouldn't have. Kept fighting when any sane man would have quit. Came home and spent 56 years carrying ghosts instead of moving on. They made you into exactly what they wanted. A weapon that never breaks, never stops, never quits. Glenn sat down hard. Mac, did he know? None of you knew. I only found out after they pulled me, after they explained what my real mission was. Which was... Carlos's voice cracked. Document the breaking point. Record who died when, how they died, what their last words were. I was the observer ghost, the scientist, and my job was to watch my brothers die and take notes. Glenn raised the gun, pointed it at Carlos's head. Give me one reason not to pull this trigger. Because killing me doesn't change what happened, doesn't bring them back, and doesn't stop what's about to happen to a whole new generation of soldiers. Explain. Project Artemis is active again. Fort Mays is one of their testing sites. Has been for 3 years. Those recruits you saw this morning, some of them are marked, selected. They'll get sent on missions designed to break them, and the ones who survive will become the next generation of ghosts. Glenn's hand shook. Evans, the sergeant, is he marked? I don't know, but if he's been reassigned to Memphis to the VA hospital, that's not punishment. That's phase 2. They're going to expose him to traumatized veterans, study how he processes their trauma, use him to refine the breaking protocols. How do you know this? Because I've been inside their system for 50 years, feeding them false data, sabotaging missions, saving the ones I could. But I'm running out of time. They're getting suspicious. And now they know you're alive and active. They'll burn everything. Everyone. Just to keep the program secret. Glenn lowered the gun slightly. Why reach out now? Why not 30 years ago, 40? Because 30 years ago, you would have killed me on sight. 40 years ago, you were too broken to help. But this morning, when you stood on that range with those recruits, something changed. You remembered. Not just the pain, the purpose. Why you fought. Why they died. And that's what I need. Not Ghost the broken veteran. Ghost the warrior who protects the ones who can't protect themselves. Glenn was quiet for a long time. Finally, let's say I believe you. What's the play? We expose them, go public, burn down Artemis before they can recruit another generation. With what proof? Carlos stood, went to the corner, pulled up a floorboard, lifted out a metal case. Inside were documents, hundreds of them, photographs, mission reports, medical records. 56 years of proof, every mission, every casualty, every lie they told families about how their sons died. It's all here. Glenn leafed through the papers, saw names, faces, his brothers. Mac's file was on top. Cause of death listed as training accident. Training accident. Glenn's vision went red. They told his sister he fell during a routine exercise, told her he died instantly. Painless. He didn't. I know. I was there. I watched him drown in his own blood while calling for a daughter that never existed, and they wrote it up as a training accident. Glenn closed the file. How do we burn them? Senator Graves, Armed Services Committee. He's clean, one of the few. We get this to him, he can force hearings, force disclosure. Where is he, Bo? D.C., protected. We'd never get close. So we bring him to us. How? Glenn smiled, no warmth in it. We do what we do best. We make them afraid. We hit them so hard they have no choice but to call for help. And when Graves shows up to contain the damage, we hand him everything. That's suicide. Yeah, probably. You in? Carlos laughed. I've been dead for 56 years, Ghost. About time I made it official. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Meanwhile, Evans and Miller were driving north in Miller's pickup truck, both armed, both knowing this was likely career suicide. Your dad's gonna kill you, Evans said. Probably. You. Don't have anyone to kill me. Wife left in '08. Kids don't talk to me. This job was all I had, and I just threw it away for an old man I mocked 6 hours ago. Why? Evans was quiet. Because he saw something worth saving in me, and I need to believe he was right. Need to believe I'm not just another bully in a uniform. Miller nodded. My dad said Ghost once carried a wounded teammate 40 miles through enemy territory. Took him 6 days. No food, no water, just kept moving. When they finally got extracted, Ghost collapsed. Doctors said another hour and he'd have died, but his teammate lived, and that was all that mattered to him. What happened to the teammate? Died 2 years later. Car accident stateside. Ghost went to the funeral. Stood in the back, didn't say a word. But afterward, the guy's widow said Ghost handed her an envelope. Inside was $40,000. Every penny Ghost had saved. No note, no explanation. Just $40,000 in cash and a picture of her husband smiling in uniform. Evans wiped his eyes. We don't deserve him. No, but maybe we can earn it, if we keep him alive long enough. Miller's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Lieutenant Miller. Who's this? My name is Colonel Vance. I'm with the Defense Intelligence Agency. I need you to pull over immediately. Why? Because you're driving toward a situation you don't understand, and if you continue, you'll be marked as accomplices to treason. Miller and Evans looked at each other. Evans leaned forward. Colonel, this is Sergeant Evans. What treason? Glenn Whitman has stolen classified materials related to ongoing military operations. He's working with a foreign agent. We have authorization to use lethal force. If you interfere, the same authorization extends to you. Foreign agent who? That's classified. Bullshit, Miller said. I checked Glenn Whitman's record. What little exists. He's a hero. Medal of Honor. Saved lives. You're lying. Lieutenant, I'm ordering you to stand down. You're not my commanding officer. You don't get to order me anything. Then consider this a friendly warning. Turn around. Go home. Forget you ever heard the name Glenn Whitman, or what happens next is on you. The line went dead. Miller kept driving. Evans checked his rifle. We're really doing this. Yeah. We're gonna die. Probably. Good. I owe that old man a death. Rather pay it forward than backward. At Fort Mays, Morrison couldn't sleep. Kept seeing Glenn's face. The tears. The trembling. He got up. Got dressed. Went to the base library. The librarian was ancient. Looked like she'd been there since the Revolutionary War. Help you, soldier. I need information on MACV-SOG. She stared at him. That's classified. I know, but I met someone. Someone who was there, and I need to understand what he went through. She studied his face. Whatever she saw there made her nod. Wait here. She disappeared into the stacks. Came back 15 minutes later with a single folder, unmarked, worn. This doesn't leave this room. You don't take notes. You don't photograph it. You read it and you put it back. Clear. Clear. Morrison opened the folder. Inside were after-action reports, mission summaries, casualty lists. He started reading. 1 hour later, he was crying. 2 hours later, he was shaking. 3 hours later, he closed the folder and looked at the librarian. They sent them to die. Yes. On purpose. That's the rumor. Never proven. But yes. Why? Because powerful people wanted data more than they wanted soldiers. And young men like you were cheaper than laboratory equipment. Morrison stood. Where would I find the people who authorize these missions? You wouldn't. They're protected. Senators, generals, CEOs now. They made careers out of that war while boys bled in jungles nobody could pronounce. What if someone had proof documentation? The librarian's eyes sharpened. Then that someone would need protection, real protection, congressional protection. Someone like Senator Graves. How do I contact him? You don't. He contacts you. If you've got something worth his time. Morrison nodded, started to leave, stopped. Ma'am, why did you show me this? You could lose your job. I'm 83 years old, Private. This job is all I have left. But I remember when we had honor, when we protected our soldiers instead of using them. Someone needs to remember. Might as well be you young ones. Morrison left, pulled out his phone, called a number he shouldn't have had. Chen, wake up. Morrison, it's 4 in the morning. I know. Listen, that old man, Ghost, I think he's in trouble. Real trouble. What kind? The kind where the government wants him dead. And I think I know why. What do? We help him, even if it kills us. Chen was quiet. Then, I'm in. What's the plan? Still working on that part. Back at the cabin, Glenn and Carlos finished planning. This is insane, Carlos said. We're talking about hitting a military convoy carrying classified materials. In broad daylight. With just the two of us. 3? A voice said from the doorway. Both men spun. Guns up. Dutch Hauer stood there, 79 years old, leaning on a cane, grinning like a maniac. Dutch. Glenn lowered his weapon. What are you doing here, saving your ass? Again, just like old times. How did you find us? Please. I ran your ops for 8 years. You think I don't know Carlos's bolt holes? This cabin's been on my list since 1974. Carlos stared. You knew all this time you knew I was alive. Of course I knew. I'm the one who authorized your extraction. I'm also the one who's been covering your tracks for 50 years. Why? Dutch sat heavily. Because Artemis was wrong. What they did to you boys was wrong. And I spent the rest of my career trying to fix it. Trying to save the ones I could. Wasn't many. But it was something. Glenn's voice went soft. Mac. Could you have saved Mac? Dutch's face crumpled. No. By the time I realized what was happening, he was already gone. I'm sorry, Ghost, I failed him. Failed all of them. But you saved Carlos. 1 out of 12. Not much of a win. It's something. Dutch wiped his eyes. Yeah, something. Anyway, I heard chatter about you going active. Figured you'd need backup. And I've got resources you don't. Like what? Dutch pulled a sat phone from his jacket. Like direct line to Senator Graves. Like access to media outlets that can't be bought off. Like 40 years of dirt on everyone involved in Artemis. They burned you boys. Fine, let's burn them back. Glenn looked at Carlos, at Dutch, at these two old spies who'd lied and schemed and survived while better men died. All right, here's how this goes. We hit the convoy, grab the materials, get them to Graves. He goes public. Artemis burns. Everyone involved goes down. Questions. Just one, Carlos said. What happens to us after? We probably die. Yeah, figured. Just wanted to hear you say it. Dutch laughed. Dying's easy. Living with what we've done, that's the hard part. About time we took the easy road. They loaded weapons, checked gear, prepared for a fight they knew they couldn't win, because winning didn't matter. Stopping Artemis did. At 0600 hours, Evans and Miller reached the Ozarks. Found the cabin using coordinates Evans had pulled from a contact at Fort Bragg. They parked a quarter mile out, approached on foot, saw the Buick, saw lights inside. He's here, Miller whispered. How do we approach if he thinks we're hostile? We're already dead. Yeah, I know. They moved closer, got within 50 yards, then every light in the cabin went out. Contact, Glenn's voice called from the darkness. Identify yourselves or I start shooting. Evans stepped forward, hands up. It's Sergeant Evans and Lieutenant Miller, sir. From Fort Mays. We're not here to hurt you. Then why are you here? Because we owe you, and because someone needs to have your back. Silence. Long enough that Evans started sweating. Then the door opened. Glenn stood there. Gun lowered, but ready. You followed me. Yes, sir. Idiots. You just painted targets on yourselves. We know, sir. Glenn studied them. These two young soldiers who should have known better. Get inside, fast. Satellites are watching. They moved. Once inside, saw Carlos and Dutch. Friends of yours? Miller asked Glenn. Complicated. This is Carlos, and that's Dutch. Evans stared at Carlos. Wait, Carlos Martinez. You're supposed to be dead. Long story. Short version. I'm a coward who let better men die. Now I'm trying to fix it. And him, Miller pointed at Dutch. I'm the guy who sent them all to hell in the first place, Dutch said. Now I'm the guy trying to drag everyone responsible down with me. Any other questions? Evans shook his head. What do you need from us? Glenn smiled. Actually smiled. I need you to do something stupid. Something that'll probably get you court-martialed or killed. Possibly both. You in... Evans and Miller looked at each other. Yes, sir, they said in unison. Good. Here's the plan. In 6 hours, a military convoy leaves Fort Campbell carrying Project Artemis files. We're going to take it. All of it. Then we're going to hand everything to Senator Graves and let him burn down everyone responsible. That's treason, Miller said. Only if we lose. And if we win, we save a generation of soldiers from being used as lab rats, from dying in missions designed to break them instead of protect them, from becoming ghosts like me. Evans nodded slowly. Then let's win, sir. The 6 of them, 3 old men who should have been dead, and 3 young soldiers who were about to wish they were spent the next hours preparing for the most dangerous mission any of them would ever attempt. Because Project Artemis had spent 50 years building monsters, and now the monsters were coming home. At Fort Campbell, Colonel Vance received confirmation that Ghost had been located. Do we have authorization for lethal force? Stand by. The line went quiet. Then a new voice. Female. Cold as ice. Colonel, this is Director Chen. You are authorized to eliminate all targets. No survivors, no witnesses, clean sweep. Ma'am, 2 of the targets are active duty Army. Did I stutter, Colonel? They made their choice. Now they pay for it. And Colonel, fail this, and you'll be the one paying. Clear. Crystal, ma'am. He hung up, looked at his team. 12 operators. All special forces. All killers. Gear up. We're going hunting. But what Colonel Vance didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Ghost had spent 56 years preparing for this moment. And ghosts don't die easy. They just take everyone with them. The convoy would pass through Hickory Bend at 1400 hours. 3 armored vehicles, 16 soldiers. Enough firepower to level a small town. Glenn stood at the table with a hand-drawn map. This is a kill box. They know it. We know it. Question is, who springs the trap first? Evans studied the map. Sir, with respect, there's 6 of us against 16 trained operators. The math doesn't work. Math never saved anyone in combat, Sergeant. Fear does, confusion does, making them think they're fighting ghosts instead of men. Miller pointed at the bridge. What if we don't hit them at the bridge? What if we hit them before they get there? Explain. They're expecting an ambush at the natural choke point, so we hit them 2 miles earlier, where they feel safe, where they're relaxed. Carlos nodded. He's right. Catch them when their guard's down. Problem is, how do we stop 3 armored vehicles with what we've got? Dutch pulled something from his bag. Small black box with an antenna. EMP device, military grade, fries electronics within a 100-yard radius, kills their engines, their comms, everything. Where the hell did you get that? Glenn asked. You really want to know? No, probably not. Evans was shaking his head. Even if we stop them, they've still got superior numbers and firepower. Not if we split them up, Carlos said. Vehicle 1 gets hit by the EMP, stops dead. Vehicle 2 and 3 have to stop or risk leaving their people exposed. That's when we hit Vehicle 2 from the west. Force them to deploy east for cover. Vehicle 3 has to decide help Vehicle 2 or protect Vehicle 1. Either way, they're divided, Glenn smiled. And divided forces die easy. Good. Who's our long gun? Miller raised his hand. 800 yards, 90% accuracy. I can take their communications officer first, then work down the chain. You kill a comms officer, you announce yourself. They'll know exactly where you are. That's the idea, sir. I draw their fire. Keep them focused on me while you move in close. You'll be pinned down, probably dead inside 5 minutes. Yes, sir, but it'll be 5 minutes you can use. Glenn looked at this kid who barely knew him, this lieutenant who was volunteering to die so the mission could succeed. Your father know you're this stupid. He's the one who taught me, sir. Said you don't measure a man by how he lives. You measure him by what he's willing to die for. Smart man. Shame his son's an idiot. Miller grinned. Thank you, sir. Evans cleared his throat. What about me? You're with me and Carlos. Close assault. We take Vehicle 1 while they're distracted by Miller. Grab the files. Extract before they can regroup. And Dutch. The old spy was loading magazines, hands steady despite his age. I'm the bait. Someone's got to make sure they commit fully. Someone's got to look like an easy target. You can barely walk, Carlos said, which makes me perfect. They see an old man with a cane, they'll assume I'm the weak link. By the time they realize their mistake, it'll be too late. Glenn wanted to argue, wanted to tell Dutch this was suicide, but Dutch's eyes said he'd already made his peace with it. All right, we move in 30 minutes. Check your weapons, say your prayers, and if you've got anyone you need to call, do it now. Evans stepped outside, pulled out his phone, stared at it for 5 minutes. Then he dialed. Sarah, it's me. I know you said never to call, but I need you to know something. I'm sorry for everything. For being the kind of man who chose the job over you and the kids. For being the kind of father who forgot birthdays and missed recitals. I'm not calling to fix it. Too late for that. I'm calling because I'm about to do something that matters. Something good. And if it goes wrong, I want Jenna and Marcus to know their dad died trying to be better than he was. His ex-wife's voice came through broken. What are you talking about? What are you about to do? I can't tell you, but Sarah, if you see the news tomorrow and my name's on it, just tell them I loved them. Tell them their dad finally figured out what honor meant, even if it took him too damn long. You're scaring me. Good. Be scared. Be angry. But don't let them think I was just another failure. Tell them I died a soldier. A real one. He hung up before she could respond. Inside, Miller was writing a letter. 3 pages. Hands shaking. Carlos watched him. Family. Father. Telling him I finally understand what he tried to teach me. Telling him I'm proud to be his son, even if I'm about to disappoint him. You're not disappointing anyone, kid. You're stepping up. That's all any father wants. Miller sealed the envelope. Wrote his father's address on the front. If I don't make it, will you make sure he gets this? You'll make it. But if I don't, Carlos took the envelope. I'll make sure. Promise. Glenn was outside checking the Colt when Dutch joined him. You know this is probably our last sunrise, Dutch said. Yeah. Any regrets? Glenn was quiet for a long time. Just one. I wish I'd killed you in '69 when I had the chance. Dutch laughed. Actually laughed. Fair, but then who would have helped you burn down Artemis? Someone braver. Someone who didn't spend 50 years lying to everyone. You're right, I'm a coward. Always have been. But Ghost, I'm trying to die brave. That's got to count for something. Glenn looked at him. This old man who'd sent so many to die, who'd played God with young lives. It counts. Not much, but something. That's all I'm asking for. They stood there in the morning light. 2 old men who'd seen too much, done too much, survived too much. At Fort Mays, Morrison and Chen were in the library when Morrison's phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. Evans is about to do something stupid. If you want to help get to Hickory Bend, bring whoever you trust. Come armed. Who sent this? Chen asked. Don't know, but Evans is the guy who mocked Ghost. If he's trying to fix that mistake, we should help. We'll be AWOL. I know. Chen thought about it. About that old man standing on the range with tears running down his face. About the way he'd forgiven Evans when he should have hated him. Let's go, but we're bringing backup. 2 hours later, 6 more recruits climbed into a truck headed north. All of them volunteers. All of them knowing this might end their careers. But careers could be rebuilt. Honor couldn't. The convoy left Fort Campbell at 1300 hours exactly. 3 armored transports, 16 Special Forces operators, Colonel Vance in the lead vehicle. All units maintain radio discipline. We've got intel that hostiles may attempt interdiction. Stay sharp. Sir, intel says we're up against 6 targets, elderly, poorly equipped. Intel also said Ghost was dead for 56 years. Don't underestimate him. Yes, sir. They moved out. Highway 41 North, standard formation. Confident. Too confident. At 1345 hours, they passed the checkpoint where Dutch stood beside a broken-down pickup truck. Old man, Kane, looking helpless. Vance saw him, dismissed him, kept moving. That was his first mistake. At 1347 hours, the lead vehicle's engine died. Just stopped. No warning, no sound. Dead. Vehicle 1 report. Sir, complete electrical failure. Everything's down. Can you restart? Negative. It's like someone pulled the plug on. The radio went dead. Vance looked at his comms officer. What just happened? EMP, sir, we're fried. All vehicles. Just one. We're still operational. Back up. Form a perimeter around Vehicle 1. Get those men out and... The first shot hit his windshield. Spiderweb of cracks, but the armor held. Contact West Side Sniper. Miller was 800 yards out. Prone. Breathing steady. He'd missed the kill shot on purpose. Wanted them focused on him. He fired again. Took out a tire on Vehicle 2. Now they knew where he was. All units suppress that sniper. Vehicle 3 maintain security on the files. 12 operators deployed toward Miller's position, laying down suppressive fire, moving with professional precision. Miller smiled. 12 men focused on him meant 12 men not watching the east side, where Ghost was moving in. Glenn Carlos and Evans came fast and low, using the terrain, the smoke, the chaos. They reached Vehicle 1 while everyone was focused on Miller. Evans, you're our breacher. Get that back door open. Evans pulled C4 from his pack. Shaped charge. Enough to blow the lock without killing anyone inside. Fire in the hole. The charge blew. Door flew open. Evans went in first. 2 operators inside, both going for weapons. Evans shot the first one in the leg. Non-lethal but incapacitating. The second one got his rifle up, but Carlos was faster. Put 2 rounds center mass. Armor stopped them, but the impact dropped him. Glenn was already at the file containers. 3 metal cases. Each one locked. No time to crack them. We take them as is. They grabbed the cases. Started moving back. That's when the machine gun opened up. Vehicle 3 had finally figured out the diversion. The gunner on top swung his M240 toward Glenn's position. Down. They hit the ground as bullets chewed up earth and rock around them. Glenn rolled right. Came up firing. Put 3 rounds into the gunner's position. Didn't penetrate armor, but made him duck. Move now. They ran, cases heavy, bullets following. Miller saw it from his position, saw them pinned down, saw the gunner reacquiring. He switched targets. 800 yards. Moving target. Wind from the east. He breathed out, squeezed. The round took the gunner in the shoulder. Gap in the armor. He went down screaming. I'm hit. Man down, man down, Vance was screaming into his radio. Vehicle 3 pursue. Do not let them escape with those files. Vehicle 3 started moving. Engine roaring. Coming around to cut off Glenn's escape. That's when Dutch stepped into the road. Old man, Kane, standing there like he had all the time in the world. The driver saw him, had maybe 2 seconds to decide hit the old man or swerve. He swerved. Vehicle 3 went off-road, hit a ditch, tipped sideways. Didn't roll, but stopped dead. Dutch smiled, pulled a grenade from his jacket, ancient M67, probably older than some of the operators. He pulled the pin, held it up so they could see. Come get me, boys. He threw it, not at the vehicle, at himself, at his feet. The explosion was massive. Dutch was gone, just gone. But the shockwave bought Glenn precious seconds. They made it to the tree line, into cover. Evans was crying. He bought us time, Glenn said. Don't waste it. Move. They moved, cases clutched tight. Miller was already falling back from his position. Vance's operators were closing in, but they'd lost track of him in the chaos. At the rally point, Glenn did a head count. 5. Should be 6. Where's Dutch? Carlos's face said everything. Glenn closed his eyes. Damn it, Dutch. He saved us, Ghost. Gave us the win. I know. Doesn't make it hurt less. They loaded into the vehicles. Miller arrived 60 seconds later. Blood on his shoulder. You hit? Grazed. I'm good. They were pulling out when headlights appeared behind them. Multiple vehicles, coming fast. Contact rear. But then one of the vehicles flashed its lights. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. Hold fire, Glenn said. That's not Vance. The vehicles pulled up. Morrison jumped out. Chen right behind him. 6 more recruits with them. Sir, we're here to help. Glenn stared. You kids are AWOL. Yes, sir. Seemed like the right thing to do. You're all idiots. Yes, sir. But we're your idiots. Glenn wanted to be angry, wanted to send them away, but he was 84 and tired and had just watched Dutch die. Fine. Fall in. We've got a senator to see. They moved out. 3 vehicles now. 15 people. 3 cases of evidence that could topple a government. Behind them, Vance was screaming into a sat phone. They've got the files. I say again, Ghost has the Artemis files. Director Chen's voice came back cold. Then kill them. I don't care how. I don't care who sees. Kill them all and recover those files. Ma'am, they've got active duty soldiers with them. This is going to be messy. I said I don't care. Burn everything, everyone, no survivors. Vance hung up, looked at his team, half of them wounded, all of them shaken. Listen up. We're going after them. New rules of engagement, shoot on sight. No warnings, no mercy. They took the files, they signed their death warrants. One of the operators raised his hand. Sir, some of those targets are Army, our guys. Not anymore, they're not. They're traitors, and we kill traitors. The operator nodded slowly, but his eyes said he was questioning orders for the first time in his career. Senator Graves was in D.C. when his secure phone rang, the one only 5 people had the number to. Graves? Senator, this is Glenn Whitman. You don't know me, but you're about to. Graves sat up. How did you get this number? Dutch Hauer gave it to me, right before he died, saving my life, and the evidence I'm bringing you. Evidence of what? Project Artemis. 56 years of illegal human experimentation. Soldiers sent to die so bureaucrats could collect data. All of it documented. All of it provable. And I'm bringing it to you because Dutch said you're the one honest man left in this city. Mr. Whitman, if what you're saying is true, it's true. And the people responsible are currently trying to kill me, and everyone with me to keep it quiet. So here's the deal, Senator. I'm coming to you. You can meet me, take the evidence, and do the right thing. Or you can hide and let them kill us and bury this for another 50 years. Your choice. Where are you? 3 hours out. I'll call with the location when we're close. Mr. Whitman, I need you to understand something. If you bring me this evidence, powerful people will come after both of us. Are you prepared for that? Glenn laughed. No humor in it. Senator, I've been dying for 56 years. Someone finally giving me a good reason to do it is almost a relief. He hung up. Graves sat there staring at the phone. Then he made a call, his chief of staff. David, I need a full security detail, armed, at my house in 1 hour. And contact every news outlet you trust. Tell them I'm holding a press conference tomorrow, 9 a.m. Tell them it'll be the biggest story of their careers. Sir, what's this about? Justice. Finally. The convoy rolled through the night. Glenn driving, Carlos beside him, Evans and Miller in the back with the cases. Morrison and Chen's vehicle followed, the other recruits behind them. They were making good time. Would reach D.C. by dawn. That's when Evans noticed the headlights behind them. Multiple vehicles, gaining fast. Sir, we've got company. Glenn checked the mirror. How many Looks like 4, maybe 5. Coming in hot. Vance found us. Everyone, this is about to get loud. Check your weapons. When the shooting starts, Morrison and Chen break off. Take a different route. If we go down, you get those files to Graves. Understood? Sir, we should stay together. That's an order, Private. Someone has to make sure this matters. Make sure Dutch didn't die for nothing. Yes, sir. The headlights were closer now. Close enough to see they were black SUVs. Military grade. Glenn's phone buzzed. Text message. Pull over or we open fire. He showed it to Carlos. What do you want to do? Glenn's hands tightened on the wheel. He thought about Mac, about Rivera, about Dutch, about 56 years of running and hiding and pretending the ghosts didn't follow him everywhere. I'm tired of running. He hit the brakes, hard. The Buick skidded to a stop. The SUVs stopped 50 yards back. Doors opened. Operators deployed. Weapons up. Vance stepped forward, megaphone in hand. Glenn Whitman, you're surrounded. Release the files and surrender. This is your only warning. Glenn opened his door, stepped out slowly, hands visible. Can't do that, Colonel. Then you die here. Probably. But the question is, do you really want to murder a Medal of Honor recipient on camera? What camera? Glenn pointed up. Morrison's phone. Streaming live to every major news outlet. Already had 50,000 viewers, growing every second. Vance's face went white. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone, Colonel. Check Twitter. Check Facebook. Check everywhere. The whole world is watching. So here's my question. You ready to kill an 84-year-old veteran and a bunch of kids on live television? Because that's what happens next. Either you shoot us and become the face of government corruption, or you let us go and face your bosses knowing you failed. Vance's hand shook on his weapon. Behind him, one of his operators lowered his rifle, then another, then all of them. Sir, one of them said quietly, this isn't right. We signed up to protect Americans, not murder them. You'll follow orders or what, you'll shoot us too. Vance looked around, saw his team fracturing, saw the phones recording, saw the trap Ghost had built. He lowered his weapon. Fall back. Everyone fall back. Sir, I said fall back. It's over. The operators withdrew, climbed back into their vehicles, drove away. Glenn stood there shaking. Couldn't believe it had worked. Carlos came up beside him. 70,000 viewers now. You just became famous Ghost. I hate famous. Too bad, you're a hero again, whether you like it or not. They got back in the vehicles, kept driving. The sun was coming up when they reached Senator Graves's house. Security met them at the gate, checked IDs, confirmed identities. Graves himself came out. Older than Glenn expected, but his eyes were sharp, honest. Mr. Whitman, you made it. Barely. Lost a good man getting here. I'm sorry for your loss. Come inside. Bring everything. My team is ready. They brought the cases, opened them on Graves's dining room table. Inside were documents, thousands of them, mission logs, medical records, financial transactions, names, dates, proof of 56 years of lies. Graves put on reading glasses, started going through them. 5 minutes in, he went pale. 10 minutes in, he started shaking. 15 minutes in, he took off his glasses and looked at Glenn. My God, this is worse than I imagined. They didn't just lie. They weaponized grief, turned sacrifice into data points, treated soldiers like laboratory equipment. Can you stop them? I can bury them. Every single person involved. It'll take time, investigations, hearings, trials, but yes, I can stop them. Glenn nodded, felt something loosen in his chest, something that had been tight for 56 years. Good, that's good. He started to sit, missed the chair, went down hard. Evans caught him. Sir, someone call an ambulance. No ambulance, just tired, so tired. Stay with us, sir, stay awake. Glenn smiled. Mac, It's Evans, sir, Sergeant Evans. Oh, right, the sergeant. You did good, son, real good. You're going to be a fine leader. Because of you, sir, you taught me. Nah, just reminded you. It was in you all along. His eyes closed. opened again with effort. Carlos, you there? I'm here, Ghost. Tell them. Tell them we were brothers. Tell them it mattered. I will. I promise. And Senator, you make sure. Make sure they know Mac was brave. Make sure his name means something. Graves was crying. I will. I swear it. Glenn's breathing slowed. Good. That's good. I can rest now. Can finally rest. Morrison was sobbing, Chen holding him. Miller had his head in his hands. Glenn's eyes found the ceiling, but he wasn't seeing ceiling. He was seeing jungle, seeing faces, seeing Max smile and reach out a hand. I'm coming, Glenn whispered. Wait for me. I'm coming home. And then Sergeant Glenn Whitman, callsign Ghost, last survivor of MACV-SOG Phantom Team, the most dangerous man who ever wore the uniform, finally stopped fighting, finally stopped running, finally found his peace. Evans pressed his fingers to Glenn's neck, felt for a pulse, found one. Weak, but there. He's alive. He's still alive. Carlos was already on the phone with 911. We need an ambulance at Senator Graves's residence. Elderly male unresponsive, possible cardiac event. Morrison was shaking. He can't die. Not now. Not after everything. Miller grabbed his shoulders. He's not dying. You hear me? Ghost doesn't quit. He never quits. The ambulance arrived in 4 minutes. Paramedics rushed in, started working on Glenn immediately. Sir, can you hear me? Sir, stay with us. Glenn's eyes opened, barely. Mac? No, sir. I'm a paramedic. You're having a medical emergency. We're taking you to the hospital. Can't go. Files. Have to protect the files. Evans leaned in close. Sir, the files are safe. Senator Graves has them. The mission's complete. You can rest now. Complete? Yes, sir. You did it. You saved them all. Glenn's hand found Evans's, squeezed weakly. You too. You're good men. All of you. They loaded him onto the stretcher. Carlos climbed into the ambulance. I'm going with him. Someone needs to be there when he wakes up. Someone who understands. The ambulance pulled away. Sirens screaming. Graves stood on his porch watching it go. Then he turned to the remaining soldiers. You kids have about 2 hours before every agency in DC descends on you. I'd suggest you get your stories straight. What happened tonight was either the bravest act of patriotism I've ever seen or treason. Depends entirely on who's asking. What do we say, sir? Chen asked. The truth. Always the truth. You saw an injustice. You tried to stop it, and you succeeded. Let them try to court-martial that. Evans pulled out his phone. Check the live stream. 3 million views now. Comments flooding in. This is what real heroes look like. Those operators backing down restored my faith in humanity. Glenn Whitman is an American treasure. And then one comment that made Evans's blood run cold. Director Chen just resigned. Artemis is done. He showed Miller. It's happening. It's really happening. At Walter Reed Medical Center, Glenn was rushed into intensive care. Doctors worked on him for 3 hours, stabilized his heart, got him breathing normally. Carlos sat in the waiting room. Hadn't moved, hadn't eaten, just sat there staring at his hands. The same hands that had abandoned Glenn 56 years ago. A doctor finally came out. Young, exhausted. Are you family? Brother, not by blood, but yeah, family. He's stable, weak but stable. His heart's been through significant trauma. At his age, recovery will be slow, but he's got a fighter's spirit. I've seen younger men give up with better odds. Can I see him? 5 minutes. He needs rest. Carlos went in. Glenn was hooked to machines, tubes and wires everywhere. But his eyes were open. Carlos, I'm here, Ghost. We did it. Yeah, we did it. Artemis is done. Director Chen resigned. Graves is calling for full congressional hearings. Every name in those files is about to get exposed. Glenn smiled. Dutch would be happy. He would. Crazy old bastard died brave. Finally. We all did. Finally. Carlos pulled a chair close. Ghost. I need to tell you something. Something I should have said 56 years ago. You don't have to. Yeah, I do. Mac's last words. He didn't ask about a daughter. He asked about you. Said, tell Ghost he was the best of us. Tell him to live. Live for all of us. That's what he said. And I never told you because I was ashamed. Because I knew I'd failed you both. Glenn's eyes filled. He said that, every word. He loved you, Ghost. They all did. And they'd be proud as hell of what you did tonight. What we did, all of us. Yeah, all of us. They sat in silence for a while. Two old soldiers who'd finally found their way home. Then Glenn spoke again. The recruits, Morrison and Chen and the others. What happens to them? Graves is handling it. Says he'll make sure they're protected. Medals probably. Maybe even promotions. They deserve it. Stupid kids threw away their careers for an old man they barely knew. Not stupid. Brave. There's a difference. Glenn laughed, winced from the pain. Yeah, guess there is. At Fort Mays, General Wallace was in his office when the news broke. Every major network running the story. Headlines screaming, Senator exposes decades of military experimentation project. Artemis government used soldiers as test subjects. Medal of Honor, recipient nearly killed protecting classified evidence. His phone rang. Joint Chiefs. General Wallace, are you watching this? Yes, sir. Did you know about Artemis? No, sir, but I met one of their victims this morning, Sergeant Glenn Whitman. He stood on my range and I saw what 50 years of government lies did to him. Saw what it cost. The Senate wants a full review of all special operations programs going back to Vietnam. This is going to be ugly. Good. It should be ugly. What they did to those men was uglier. General, I need to know. If you'd known about Artemis, would you have stopped it? Wallace didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. Without question. Good. Because I'm putting you in charge of the review. Root out every program like Artemis. Burn them down. All of them. It'll make enemies, sir. Powerful enemies. Then you'll fit right in with Whitman and his crew. Get it done, General. Wallace hung up. Looked at the photo on his desk. Panama, 1987. Him as a young lieutenant being carried out of the jungle by a man whose face he never saw. He'd spent 20 years trying to find that man. Turns out he'd been standing in front of him all along. At the hospital, Morrison and Chen arrived with flowers, Evans and Miller right behind them. The nurse tried to stop them. He needs rest. We are his rest, Morrison said. We're his brothers. Let us through. She looked at their faces, saw something there that made her nod. They filed into the room. Glenn was awake, looked stronger. You kids should be on base. We're AWOL, sir. Figured we might as well commit to it. Idiots. Yes, sir. Glenn looked at each of them. Thank you for coming, for fighting, for believing an old man's war stories were worth dying for. Chen stepped forward. Sir, they weren't stories. They were truth. And truth is always worth fighting for. Your generation's going to be all right, better than mine was. Only because you taught us how. Evans cleared his throat. Sir, I need to say something. This morning when I grabbed your arm when I mocked you, I was everything wrong with this uniform. I was arrogant and blind and cruel, and you had every right to let me burn. But you didn't. You asked the general to save me. Why? Glenn was quiet for a moment. Because I saw Mac in you, saw that fire, that pride. And I knew if someone could just point it in the right direction, you'd become something special. Was I right? Evans wiped his eyes. I'm trying, sir. Every day I'm trying. That's all anyone can ask. Miller pulled out an envelope. The letter he'd written before the convoy hit. Sir, I want you to have this. It's a letter to my father, telling him I finally understood what he tried to teach me about honor and sacrifice. I want you to give it to him. Tell him his son learned from the best. You're not dead, Lieutenant. Give it to him yourself. I know, sir, but you should read it first, because half of it's about you. About what you taught me in 6 hours that the Army couldn't teach me in 6 years. Glenn took the letter. I'll read it, and I'll be proud to meet your father. Any man who raised a son like you did something right. Morrison stepped forward. Sir, what happens now to all of this? Now Congress investigates. People go to jail. Families get answers about how their sons really died. And maybe we make sure it never happens again. And you, sir, what happens to you? Glenn smiled. Me, I'm going to do something I haven't done in 56 years. I'm going to live. Really live. Not just exist between November 7th. Actually wake up in the morning and be grateful instead of guilty. You were never guilty, sir. You were a survivor. Took me 84 years to figure that out. Don't make my mistake, kid. Don't wait until you're dying to start living. Senator Graves arrived an hour later, brought a camera crew. Mr. Whitman, if you're feeling up to it, I'd like to record a statement, something we can use in the hearings. Glenn nodded. Turn it on. The camera rolled. Graves spoke first. For the record, this is Senator William Graves. I'm here with Sergeant Glenn Whitman, Medal of Honor recipient and last surviving member of MACV-SOG Phantom Team. Sergeant, can you tell us what happened 56 years ago? Glenn took a breath, started talking. About the mission, the ambush, watching his brothers die one by one, the lies told to their families, the decades of silence and shame and survivor's guilt. He talked for 30 minutes. Never stopped. Never broke down. Just told the truth. When he finished, Graves turned off the camera. That's going to change everything. You know that, right? Good. It should. They died for nothing. Least I can do is make sure the truth means something. It will. I promise you that. Over the next 3 weeks, the story exploded. Every news outlet running specials. Families of dead soldiers coming forward. More victims of Artemis programs identified. 12 senators called for immediate investigations. The president ordered a full review of all classified military programs. Director Chen was arrested trying to flee the country. 4 generals resigned. 7 defense contractors lost their security clearances. Project Artemis was officially terminated. And Glenn Whitman became the face of government accountability. He hated every second of it. The interviews, the cameras, the people treating him like a hero when all he'd done was survive while better men died. But he did them anyway, because Mac and Rivera and Dutch and all the others couldn't speak for themselves. Someone had to. Evans was reassigned, not to Memphis, to the Pentagon. Special assistant to General Wallace. His job helped review and reform special operations protocols. Miller got promoted, made captain, put in charge of veteran outreach programs at Fort Mays. Morrison and Chen were awarded Bronze Stars for valor. The other recruits received commendations. All of them refused to accept the honors until Glenn's team was recognized. So on a cold morning in February at Arlington National Cemetery, the Army held a ceremony. 11 headstones. Empty graves for men whose bodies had never been recovered. But now they had names, and ranks, and the truth carved in granite. Glenn stood in front of Mac's stone, Carlos beside him. We did it, brother, we told them. Everyone knows now. The wind carried his words away. Behind him, Morrison spoke quietly. Sir, there's something else. Glenn turned. Morrison was holding a box. What's this? Open it. Inside were 12 patches, pristine, green and gold. MACV-SOG, 1 for each member of Phantom Team. Senator Graves had them made, said every member of your team deserves to be remembered properly. 1 for each grave and 1 for you. Glenn lifted out the patch with his name on it. Glenn Whitman, Sergeant, Phantom Team. He pressed it to his chest, over his heart, where it belonged. Thank you. Sir, there's more. The Army's establishing a new protocol, the Whitman Protocol. Any soldier who reports unethical operations or experimental programs will be protected. Guaranteed due process, no retaliation, and every training class will hear your story, will learn what real honor looks like. Glenn couldn't speak, just nodded. Evans stepped forward. Sir, I brought someone to meet you. A woman approached, late 60s, gray hair, kind eyes. Sergeant Whitman, this is Eleanor McIntyre, Mac's sister. Glenn's knees almost gave out. Mac's sister. I didn't know he had... He did. I was 12 when he died. They told me it was a training accident. I believed them for 56 years, until 3 weeks ago when Senator Graves called and told me the truth. I'm so sorry. I tried to save him. I tried. She took his hands. I know. I read your testimony. You held him. You were with him. He didn't die alone because of you. He was so brave. The bravest man I ever knew. He always was. Even as a kid. Always standing up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. She smiled through tears. Tell me something. Did he suffer? Glenn wanted to lie, wanted to make it easy, but he'd spent 56 years carrying lies. No more. Yes, he suffered, but I gave him morphine, held his hand, and I made him a promise. Told him I'd make sure people knew he was brave, that he mattered. You kept that promise. Thank you. She hugged him. This old man who'd loved her brother, who'd carried his memory for half a century. When she pulled back, she placed something in Glenn's hand, a photograph, Mac in uniform, smiling, young and alive and whole. He'd want you to have this, want you to remember him before the jungle, before the war, when he was just a kid from Boston with dreams bigger than his common sense. Glenn stared at the photo. At that smile he'd almost forgotten. I'll treasure this, rest of my life. I know you will. The ceremony continued, each name read aloud, each life honored. When they got to Carlos Martinez, Glenn stepped forward. Carlos Martinez didn't die in that jungle, but the man he was did. He spent 50 years trying to fix what he'd done, trying to save others from the same fate. And 3 weeks ago, he died doing exactly that. Died buying time for his brothers. Finally died brave. Finally died right. He looked at the empty grave. I forgive you, Carlos. I forgive you. Somewhere maybe Carlos heard him. After the ceremony, Glenn stood alone at the graves. Everyone else had left, given him space. He knelt down, touched Mac's stone. I kept my promise, brother. Everyone knows. Everyone knows you were brave, that you mattered, that you died protecting something bigger than yourself. And maybe it doesn't change anything. Maybe you're still just as dead. But at least now your sister knows the truth. At least now your name means something more than a lie on a government form. He stood slowly, joints aching, heart aching worse. I'm tired, Mac. So damn tired. But I'm going to keep going, keep fighting, keep making sure your death means something. Because that's what brothers do. We carry each other, living or dead. We carry each other home. He walked away from the graves, toward where Evans and Miller and Morrison and Chen were waiting by the car. His new brothers, the ones who'd chosen to stand with him when they didn't have to. The ones who'd risked everything for a truth that didn't directly affect them. You kids ready? Glenn asked. For what, sir? To change the world. Really change it. Not just expose one program, but fix the whole broken system that created it. Morrison grinned. Hell yes, sir. It's going to be hard, going to make enemies, going to cost you. Good, Chen said. Cheap victories aren't worth having. Glenn smiled. You really are going to be all right, all of you. They drove back to Fort Mays, to the same range where this had all started, Range 7. Glenn stood in formation, just like he'd done every November 7th for 56 years. But this time he wasn't alone. Evans stood beside him. Then Miller, Morrison, Chen. 5 more recruits. Then 20. Then 50. The entire base formation standing with Ghost. Standing for the Ghosts. General Wallace approached, saluted. Sergeant Whitman, on behalf of the United States Army and a grateful nation, thank you for your service, your sacrifice, your courage, and most of all, for your truth. Glenn returned the salute. Just did my duty, sir. No, you did far more than that. You reminded us why we wear this uniform. Not for glory, not for power, but to protect those who can't protect themselves. To speak truth when lies are easier. To stand when falling is safer. He turned to the formation. Everyone here, look at this man. Remember this moment. Because this is what honor looks like. Not a ribbon, not a medal, but the courage to fight for what's right, even when the cost is everything. That's the standard. That's the bar. And by God, we will meet it or die trying. The formation came to attention as one. Morrison stepped forward, addressed the crowd. Sir, we're establishing something. Those of us who stood with you that day. We're calling ourselves Phantom Company. Not official, not recognized, just a promise that wherever we go, whatever we do, we'll remember. We'll carry Ghost's lessons. And we'll make damn sure no soldier ever gets used like you and your brothers were used. Glenn's voice cracked. You don't have to do that. Yes, sir. We do. Because someone has to. And you taught us how. 3 months later, Glenn Whitman testified before Congress, told his story again, answered questions for 8 hours straight. At the end, the committee chairman stood. Sergeant Whitman, this committee formally apologizes for what was done to you and your team. No words can undo the harm. No compensation can restore what was taken. But we can promise this never again. Never again will soldiers be treated as expendable, as experiments, as anything less than the heroes they are. Glenn nodded. That's all I wanted. That's all any of us wanted. The hearing ended. Legislation passed. The Artemis Accountability Act. New protections for soldiers. New oversight for black programs. New consequences for anyone who violated the sacred trust between government and military. It wouldn't bring back Mac, or Dutch, or any of them, but it meant they hadn't died for nothing, and that was enough. 5 years later, Glenn Whitman died peacefully in his sleep. He was 89, surrounded by people who loved him, finally free from the ghosts that had haunted him for nearly 6 decades. His funeral was attended by 3 senators, 2 generals, and 400 soldiers who'd never met him but knew his story. Evans gave the eulogy, stood at the podium with tears streaming down his face. Ghost taught me that strength isn't measured in muscles or medals. It's measured in the courage to stand when standing costs everything. The courage to speak when silence is safer. The courage to fight not for glory, but for those who can't fight for themselves. He was 84 when I met him, old, broken, haunted. But he stood on that range with more courage than I'd ever seen. And he changed my life, changed all our lives, because he showed us what real honor looks like. He looked at the casket, at the flag draped over it. Sleep well, Ghost. Your watch is over. We'll take it from here. They buried him at Arlington, Section 60, near Mac and the others. On his headstone, they carved Glenn Whitman, Sergeant U.S. Army MACV-SOG Phantom Team, 1941-2030. He remembered. And at the bottom, added by Morrison and the others, so will we. Every November 7th, they gather at his grave, the Phantom Company, growing larger each year as new soldiers learn the story and join the tradition. They stand in formation, silent, honoring the man who taught them that heroes don't always wear capes, or carry flags, or get parades. Sometimes heroes are just old men who refuse to let the truth die with them. Sometimes heroes are broken veterans who keep fighting long after the war ends. Sometimes heroes are the ones who teach us that honor isn't about winning. It's about refusing to quit, even when quitting is easier. It's about protecting those who come after you, even when you won't be around to see them protected. It's about standing in formation with ghosts and saying their names so they're never forgotten. Glenn Whitman was a hero, not because he survived when others died. He was a hero because he turned that survival into something that mattered. He carried 11 ghosts for 56 years so that future soldiers wouldn't have to carry any. He bled so others could heal. He spoke so others could be heard. He stood so others could stand taller. And in the end, that old veteran who was laughed at on a training range became the reason those recruits learned what respect really means, became the reason protocols changed, became the reason families got truth, became the reason honor won, because Ghost didn't just survive the war, he won it. 56 years late, but he won it. And every soldier who wears the uniform today stands a little straighter because he refused to stop fighting until the fight was finished. That's not just a story about one man. That's a promise about what all of us can become if we're brave enough to choose honor over comfort, truth over silence, and sacrifice over safety. Glenn Whitman proved that it's never too late to make your life mean something. Never too late to fight for what's right. Never too late to be the hero someone needs you to be. And as long as even one person remembers his name and what he stood for, Ghost will never truly die. He'll live forever in the soldiers who choose courage over fear, in the leaders who choose justice over expediency, and in the hearts of everyone who believes that one person, just one, can change the world if they're willing to stand when everyone else sits down. So remember Glenn Whitman. Remember Ghost. Remember that recruits laughed at an old veteran lining up for inspection, until the general saw his patch and the whole world learned what real heroism looks like.